Good
I
for
mean,
you.
off-market marketing, people say they do it. I just don't think they do it enough. And that's why it's not working, is because it really does come down to volume, and it comes down to follow-up. And if you do enough of both of those, then you're gonna find deals.
Welcome to the Threefold Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the podcast where you'll not only learn how you can achieve massive success in multifamily real estate investing, but also how you can simultaneously pursue great relationships with your family and a better walk with God. You can achieve financial freedom through real estate investing without sacrificing the relationships that mean the most to you. Now, here's your host, Lee Yoder.
Welcome back, Threefold listeners. I hope you're having a great week. We've got a great guest today, a return guest. Gabe Petersen is joining us from out in Seattle. He was actually on this podcast, one of the early guests, actually, episode 14. Go back and listen to that one. 2 years ago, Gabe and I were just laughing that was like the beginning of COVID, and you know, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into with all that. We're not going to talk about that today, thankfully. Gabe's back. We're going to get an update on how things are going from him. It was a great first episode. Again, go back and listen to that. But I'll tell you a little bit about Gabe, and then we'll bring him in. He is the founder of Kaizen Properties and the host of the Real Estate Investing Club podcast. He started his career as a management consultant for Fortune 500 companies in Seattle, Washington, but soon realized the corporate world did not fit the vision he had for his life. So during his 7 years in corporate, he tried his hand at building an e-commerce business, t-shirt company, even worked as a part-time digital marketing consultant. It wasn't until he bought his first broken down triplex in Tacoma, Washington, that he truly found his path in real estate. That's a really cool story. That's in the first. I remember Gabe telling me about that and that one. So again, go back and listen to episode 14. So after selling that first triplex back in 2014, he had officially caught the real estate investing bug. He now owns and operates Kaizen Properties, buying and repositioning commercial real estate across the U.S. with a special focus on self-storage and industrial properties. Gabe, welcome back, man. So glad to have you again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to jump into this again.
So Gabe, I don't want to, talk so much about the triplex and kind of like the early stuff, because we did that last time. But do you mind just jumping back there real quick for everybody that missed the first episode? Can you tell us just kind of a little bit about getting in that triplex, a little bit what that did for you, and then kind of, how you snowballed it and eventually jumped in full time and all that?
Yeah. I feel like I'll breeze through the first number of years, actually, because I didn't really focus entirely on, I wasn't full time in real estate until just recently, like 2019, 2020. But I did that first flip. I was working at Microsoft, and I did a flip with a buddy. Turned out to make more money than I'd ever seen in one check. And so I really fell into it. From 2014 until 2019, I was like a dabbler, I would say. You mentioned in your in the little intro, I was doing a whole bunch of things. I was trying out e-com, all these different things. But I started doing wholesaling. I did some more flips, bottle rental. And that probably spanned about 6 years until finally 2019, 2020, I was like, I need to make the leap. I need to make the jump. Got to make this my real thing. I ran into a partner who was focused on mobile home parks. We bought our first mobile home park.
Neat.
I quit corporate, quickly bought the next mobile home park. And I'm glossing over a lot of things here, but just trying to condense the story. So we bought those two mobile home parks. I kind of, great thing about real estate, and one of the reasons that it is like my favorite thing to do, is just there's so many different ways to do real estate. There's like not one cookie cutter way to get out there.
Right.
And so I was in mobile home parks. We still own those. They're doing great. I kind of decided that it wasn't the asset class that I wanted to focus on. And so I started looking at other things, decided on self-storage for a number of reasons, and then bought 6 self-storage facilities over the last year and a half. And here we are.
Nice. I do want to jump back on a couple of things. So, it often happens like that, Gabe, that it does take a while to get started, especially when you have a full-time job, especially when
it didn't have to for me. I'm sorry to jump in.
Oh, yeah.
I think I waited way too long. And it was just because I was afraid, and I thought I needed all these other things. I should have, with that first flip, I should have just focused in and got within the first, year or two, jumped in full time, but it took me 6 years.
Tell us a little more about that, Gabe. Like what held you back? Like you said, fear. So you had a good job, fearful that like you're giving up a great job to go do something that you might fail at.
Yeah. So I didn't really have anybody in my life at that time that, I was trying to go to like meetings and REI meetings and stuff, but I didn't have anybody that was in real estate. And so I didn't really have that backing, that confidence that somebody could say, hey man, you got this, just keep doing it. So it was a
Yeah.
huge risk, and nobody in my family owned a business. And
Yep.
so I didn't really have that, that voice in my ear that was telling me that it was possible. I knew it was possible. I just didn't have that feeling that it was possible. And then, if you're working a decent corporate job and you're
Yeah.
making enough money, it's really hard to get over that hump of,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to let go of this security here and I'm going to go and do this thing that's completely not guaranteed.
Yep. Oh, for sure. What do
Yeah.
you think would have been the biggest help for you back then, Gabe? Like, you think getting in a mastermind, getting in a hiring a coach? Like, I mean, you're kind of mentioning if you had somebody there maybe saying, Gabe, I was where you were. Here's what I did. Like, here's your next step. Like, okay, you're not going to quit yet, but do this to at least get yourself closer. I mean, what do you think would have been the biggest help?
Yeah, no, for sure. Having someone there, having a mentor, some person who'd already gone through who was the place that I wanted to be. And then just have them tell me like, dude, you got this. I know, it's scary, but just go, even to bounce deals off of them and like, hey, is this a
Yeah.
good deal?
Yeah.
Is
Oh,
this,
for sure.
whatever it is, just having somebody in my corner to kind of push me along,
Yeah.
probably would have helped a lot. But, I mean, hindsight's 2020. I'm glad I
Yeah.
am where I am today. And
Yep.
it's, there's nothing but gratitude.
Yeah. 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 Well, sure. Easy segue. Gabe, you've got the real estate investing club. Tell us a little bit about that. Cause I think that's kind of a little bit what you're trying to do now is, have those people, be able to reach out to you and say, okay, Gabe, I'm where you were in 2014 or whatever. I don't want to wait 5 years to 2019, to quit. Can you help me? Tell us a little bit about that and what you do over there, the real estate investing club.
Yeah. I mean, the podcast, it started because, before COVID, I was doing a lot of networking. I was like going to meetings and meeting a bunch of people in person. COVID happened, and I was like, well, now I got to find something else. Got to change strategies. So I started the podcast just to meet other investors, and it really does help to surround yourself in any way with other people who are doing the same thing.
Yep.
Real estate, you can essentially do it by yourself. It's not fun, but it's possible. But if you do that, it's just you lose so much motivation, and there's just so many intangibles that can't really quantify, that once you are surrounded with people who are doing the same thing, I get energy, I get, share knowledge, all these different things. So started the podcast, really fell in love with doing it, helping people who are below, who are before me in the real estate journey, helping them get to where I am. And then also talking to people who are farther down the road, learning, getting the wisdom from them. And so it's been a great experience.
That's awesome. So along those lines, Gabe, so you eventually did find somebody, you found that partner, you went and bought a couple mobile home parks. Can you tell us how you found him? And then how'd you decide to partner with him? How'd you guys decide, what to do for your first deal?
At that point, I had a few partners in the single family realm. And the very first, I guess, mentor that I had was a guy named Matt Terriel. I bought his course. He's this dude, he does flips in California. Okay. I don't know if he's still. It's Epic Real Estate is his podcast. I used to listen to it all the time, and I bought his course, and I did all of his stuff, and that really helped me because it kind of gave structure to this thing that I was doing on the side. Yeah. So I do want to give a shout out to Matt Terriel if he's still out there doing his thing, because he helped me out. I knew I wanted to get bigger. I wanted to scale. I don't think scale is the right word, but I just wanted to do bigger deals.
Yeah, do more.
And it's really hard to do, in the single family space. There are people that do it, but it's just not something that I wanted to do. And so I focused on commercial, and mobile home parks weren't really in my, at first I was looking at multifamily. But I met this guy online, in Washington real estate. He was just involved in Washington real estate, and I was just going out and meeting people and having lunch. And we just, kicked it off and decided to go at it. And he had already been focused on mobile home parks. Well, he hadn't bought anything yet, but he'd done a lot more research than I had. And so, we just we decided to partner up. We're still partnered up on the two mobile home parks that I do own.
But you mentioned that you end up getting away from mobile home parks, not what you focus on now, Gabe. So you did two, still own them. Sounds like you're doing great. You're not mad about doing those two, but you decided not to do anymore. What is it about mobile home parks that you didn't like as much as self-storage that you're doing now?
I've had rentals before, and I liked the idea of doing something that was more business oriented. So at first I was actually looking at strip center retail, because I just wanted to interact more as a business, and not as someplace where people live.
Okay.
And evictions are 100% necessary. It's just not something I really enjoy, especially when you're intimately involved with the operations of the property. Mobile home parks, it's really hard to find really good third-party property managers, and so you have to really be involved with the management of the company, even if you do have, a manager on site. So yeah, I wanted to focus more on assets that were more treated like businesses in the sense that people didn't live there. Self-storage, you're still interacting with, regular customers, but they're not living there. I have no qualms about evicting somebody that has stopped paying on a self-storage unit.
Right. Yeah. I think you and I think about this the same way, Gabe, because I totally agree. And that's definitely what kind of steered me away from mobile home parks a little bit, is that I've always said the same thing, that I have no interest in being a property manager. And it felt like, to me, it's really hard to not fall into that a little bit with the mobile home parks, because it is so hard to find good property management. And when you own a property, if you don't have somebody else doing a great job being the property manager, you're going to need to step in and be the property manager a little bit, to some degree, right?
Yep.
And it sounds like, you're shaking your head. It sounds like you kind of had experience. I've had the experience in multifamily too. And that goes kind of to what you're saying, is like, you're trying to even give a little bit further out of that, where it's maybe easier to run operationally and like less people involved. I mean, people are emotional, feeling beings and react emotionally and all those things. So if you can just deal with people's stuff, or even just people's businesses, then it can feel more like a business. And I'm right with you, Gabe, because what I like doing is I like buying and selling. I like underwriting. I like looking for stuff. I like running the numbers. I like being an asset manager. I want nothing to do with property management. That's why I on my show, I talk a lot about finding good property management, so that you don't have to do that. But man, it's still a challenge, and you still have to be very involved. So I think we connect with you really well there. Gabe, I know one thing you've done really well and that you really focus on is finding off-market deals. I'm sure that it's been so tough. It's still so tough today, because while, a lot of sellers are willing to sell for a little bit less, interest rates are so much higher that there's still no good deals out there. And it's been so tough to find deals for a long time. It feels like everybody that owns commercial real estate kind of knows what they own, and they want to sell with a broker. That's just, the sense I get. So it feels like there's no way to find good off-market deals. I think that's what a lot of people say. I think you would beg to differ with that. What are you doing differently, Gabe? Tell us a little bit about how you're finding off-market.
Yeah, I feel like that is the sentiment that a lot of people have. But it's good for people who do market off, do a lot of off market marketing, because there are deals out there. There are always going to be deals out there. I told you before we got on here, I just got under contract to buy a 74,000 square foot self-storage facility. Wow. Off market. Great. I don't want to go into the numbers yet because we haven't closed on it, but it's just a great deal. And so I found that off market. I followed up with this guy for literally a year and a half before he finally signed. And so off-market marketing, people say they do it. I just don't think they do it enough. And that's why it's not working, is because it really does come down to volume, and it comes down to follow-up. Yeah. And if you do enough of both of those, then you're going to find deals. It's just, sometimes it'll feel like you're not going to, but the moment that you feel like, all right, this isn't working, something's going to come out of the woodwork. It just comes down to volume. We use all the channels that everybody else uses. We use direct mailers. We use text marketing. We've used RVMs in the past. We've used cold calling. So it's not rocket science. It's not like we're doing anything different than anyone else is doing. It's just that I feel like maybe we're doing it more consistently. And we're following up with the people that we are interacting with. And so that it really, you never know when somebody's going to sell. Maybe you talk to, Susan on the first of the year, and she said, no, hell no, I'm never going to sell my property. Her niece or her daughter becomes pregnant. And now she's like, wait, I don't want to have to deal with this property anymore. Yeah. And you call her the next week and she's like, you know what? You caught me at the right time. I know I want to sell now. So let's get this done.
Yeah.
And that's just how it happens every time. So just keep at it, and eventually something comes through the door.
That's super fascinating to me, Gabe. So if you don't mind, let's walk through that a little bit. So how do you start? What do you cast a pretty wide net, or do you say, hey, I'm here in Seattle, I want to own, an hour or two outside of Seattle. I'm just going to look up all the self-storage facilities in a 2-hour radius and start working on getting their addresses, getting their phone numbers, and start hitting them all up. How does it start? How do you get your list?
It's just like, again, what most people do. I have a subscription to Crexy and CoStar, so we just get, get lists of facilities. And then we skip trace them and send mailers, send texts, all that stuff. We try to focus on, we have our buying criteria, the minimum buying criteria that we absolutely, don't want anything outside of this. It's pretty, it still encompasses a lot of the United States, but right now I'm looking for kind of the Sun Belt. A city has to be at least 50,000 with a positive net migration. If it's growing, we're not going to look at it. If it's under 50,000, we're not going to look at it. Property can't be in any flood zone, 100-year, 500-year. And then it has to, we have a square foot, requirement. And so if it meets those basic requirements, then we'll mail to it. And they're pretty basic. A lot of facilities do fall into those buckets. So choose a state, choose a couple metros. We're really focusing on Texas right now, just because, so many metros in Texas are just double digit, net migrations. And I already own few properties out there, and so that's where we're zoning in on.
When you end up talking to somebody, Gabe, is it like, hey, I've been hit up so much, but I am fielding offers, and just give me a really high offer and I'll take it and I won't list it? Is that kind of how it usually starts, and then you just start a relationship and just work on them for a year?
Yeah. I'm never the first person to contact these sellers. They always have been hit up 1,000 times. I'm trying to think if we do anything unique. We don't really.
It sounds like one thing you follow up, which seems to be unique. It sounds like there's other people doing this, but they're not as consistent, and they're just not willing to play the long game, which I don't mean to disparage people, but it's so hard to do. I think it's just human nature to like, man, I can do this for a little bit, but you mentioned, as soon as you feel like it's not going to work or it's not working, that's when it does. But unfortunately, most people, that's when they give up, because it feels like, I've been doing this for 6 months. Everybody says no. It doesn't work. So they quit on month 6, and it was month 8 or 10, that they would have gotten that incredible deal.
And that is really it. When you when you get a list, when you say you choose a market, you choose Dallas, you get all the facilities or whatever, if you're multifamily, all the apartment complexes in that area that fit your criteria, you build it. Then you send a mailer. Don't stop there. Send, wait, a month, send another mailer, wait 2 months, send another mailer, hit your lists multiple times, to make sure that your message is out there. Change up the media a little bit. Doesn't have to be a lot. I only use postcards. Postcards work fine. They're half the price as a regular mailer. So just, the consistency. And when you're on the phone, just give them, it's hard, but you'll have your CRM. We always have the date of when their next contact date is. And we usually, if we have different categories of, hot, cold, super hot, or dead. And so if they're in the cold category, we check up with them every 3 months. If they're in the warm category, we check with them every month. If they're hot, then we do it every week. And if it's extra hot, like super hot, and we're working on this deal, then it's not, we don't really have a touch point for that. We just, at that point, it is, it's moving forward. And so we have dates that we're actually saying that we're going to be contacting them next, working on the PSA, all that stuff.
This is very relevant. It's so hard to find a good deal. And I do think too, I don't know what you think, Gabe, with the tides changing, I think some sellers are going to be willing to get creative. For a long time, it's like, well, why would anybody do anything different than just go get as much bank money as you can and buy the property? That was my take. Like, I'm just going to go get 80% if I can from a bank at 3.5% interest. Why would I not get as much of that money as I can and just buy the deal in the regular way? Right. But now I'm like, well, seller financing might be interesting, and that's more like hey, let's do this off market. And I think sellers are starting to feel it. I've heard, and this is through a broker, but I've heard like, hey, this seller's willing to do some seller financing. They realize like it's harder to buy right now. So they're willing to get creative. So I'm wondering if you think, along the same lines that seller financing can be like coming in a little bit more, and maybe some sellers more interested in it.
Yeah, I do. I feel like in the past couple of months, there's been a mismatch of expectations between sellers and buyers. Sellers are still in the 3% interest realm where they want $11 million at a 5 cap. And buyers now have 7% interest expectations. And so there's this huge mismatch. And the only way to align those is, align their end price expectation with your cash flow expectation is to do seller financing, because you're not going to be able to get anything less than, you're not going to get decent interest rates right now.
Right. Yeah.
But even outside of this environment, like I always heavily suggest seller financing a deal. I'm selling two of my properties right now with seller financing.
Awesome.
I think it's a win-win for all parties involved. I think it's killer. And I mean, most commercial property owners understand seller financing, and you don't really have to, explain it to them. But if you can really try to sell it and just accentuate the benefits to them, then sometimes they'll go through with it. I know, I myself sell my own property seller finance, so it's a good win-win scenario all around.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the benefits of that, Gabe, if you don't mind. And then maybe just real quick how it works. I mean, let's say I own a property. I think it's worth 5, and people think it's worth 5, and I only owe, 3 on it. So I could go, sell and have a $2 million windfall, right? And commission, taxes, all that stuff for sure. But I feel like there's $2 million there. But I could also, and maybe now though, it's like, no, the market's not there. So I can't sell it for 5. I can only sell it for 4.5, maybe 4.25. I'm like, man, that stinks. But then maybe someone comes along and says, no, I'll still do 5, but I want seller financing. Right. So what's that look like for my $3 million loan that I still have? Can you just walk us through, like, just high level what that looks like?
Yeah. So I guess that's something that I left out earlier when we do our marketing. We focus heavily on properties that have very low principal on them.
Okay.
And so
the people that have paid off their property already or pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so if a property, it's really hard if it has, if their debt service is still pretty high. I actually just went through this recently that we had to back out on the deal because they had, I don't know, I think it was like they had only paid it down 50% or something like that.
Okay. Gotcha.
And we were trying to, some banks, so I've been told, I haven't found a bank that'll do this, but some banks will allow you to come in and put debt on top of theirs. But we couldn't figure out a way to get the deal done. And so if there's existing debt on the property, it is hard. I mean, you got to pay off that debt.
So when you
somehow.
come in, Gabe, and then people come in and buy yours, let's say on that same thing, I think it's worth 5 and I only owe 500,000. Then maybe I at least want the buyer to come in and pay off that 500,000. So that's your down payment to me.
Yep.
Pay off my loan, and then we can talk about a new loan.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, you got to get rid of that debt somehow.
Okay.
And so it's either,
makes sense.
Yeah, somebody's got to pay it down.
Okay. One other question I have real quick, Gabe, just in case people are wondering, with mailers, with this campaign, what kind of cost, just maybe in general, do you have like a per month or per year cost? And then obviously you must feel like you're making that up with these great deals. Like I spend 25 grand a year or whatever, but man, I can tell you this last deal, I just bought it for 250 grand less. I'll take the 2,500 or 25,000 in expenses. Do you have some numbers like that for us?
So the text marketing platform that we use is called Lead Sherpa. That one's $500 a month.
Okay. 6 grand a year then. Okay.
Yeah. And the to send texts from Lead Sherpa is, once you have the subscription, it's negligible. And so the actual text itself is, nothing, but the platform itself costs 500. But then you gotta get the data, which is Crexy's subscription. And that one was 2,000, I believe, a year. But I think theirs
how much
is like,
you spend on mailers, the postcards.
Yeah. So Lead Sherpa, text marketing, subscription, and then you got to skip trace the data, and that's 15 cents per, or 12 cents per. And then mailers, we do, it really varies depending on where we're at. Like $500 to $2,000 a month.
Okay. Gotcha. So yeah, you're spending, I mean, a fair amount. I mean, at least just quick about 20 grand a year. So what's that doing for you?
I mean, we can talk about this one because I won't mention any area or location. Sure. The facility itself is 74,000 square feet. For 74,000 square feet, net rentable. We got it under contract for $41 a square foot, which is for self-storage. If you guys know it, it's really low. Yeah. It produces about 300,000 in gross income right now. And the upside is it's almost 13 cap on the upside. Once you fill it, based on your acquisition price. Yeah.
And you're not getting that deal if it's on market. Somebody else is more than you would have paid.
I was in competition with other people that had reached out to him off market. Yep. But I think he just liked me. I had been talking with him for over a year and a half.
Yeah.
He did go for the highest and best, not highest and best, but he at one point he told me, he was like, I'm not going to continue to do my price, your price, my price, your price. And so eventually he just accepted my offer, and we went forward with it.
Wow, that's
Um,
great. Because you had
but
a relationship.
yeah. And
Yeah.
even outside of that deal, like the first two deals that I bought in Dallas, I bought them for, what was it? It was like, I think it was $19 per square foot. And so, which is for self-storage is absurd. It's like super low.
Yeah.
And this guy, he had not ran the facility at all. He owned a bunch of property, and these were, smaller facilities that he just didn't care about.
Yeah.
He had a bunch of delinquencies, way under market in rents. And so it was essentially an empty facility that he was selling me.
Jeez. Yeah.
But they were in great locations. The structure itself was great. And so there was a lot going for it. It was just, it wasn't making any money at the time. Now they're doing great, and I think they're at 80 something percent
Wow,
occupancy
that's
now.
awesome.
And that's
Yeah.
been, it's been a year. So,
What about management with those, Gabe? When you took over those two, what are you doing for management? Are you keeping management on? You got to go find new management. What is it? How hard is that to find management for that?
yeah, so I have gone through a few third-party property managers. I ended up finding a really good one. Took a while,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that is something that I feel like you got to nail if you're
Yep.
doing any
Man,
commercial
totally
property. You
agree.
have to find a good property manager. That is
Totally
so
agree.
key.
Yep.
I did end up finding a really good one. They've been awesome. And it took me, tons of interviews. I would talk to a property manager. I'd ask for a few client recommendations they could give. I'd call their clients. I'd call other people in the industry and see if they had worked with
Yep.
them before. So I
Yeah.
really did my due diligence on these people. And having found them, it, works out pretty well.
Yeah. And you had to
But
fire a couple others before them?
yeah,
Yeah.
that is not the first one that we used, and the previous ones weren't great.
Yeah.
And if
It's
you
common.
don't have a great property manager, it can be very frustrating.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
And I mean, you mentioned it earlier. Eventually, you're going to have to step in as part of the property management role, which you don't want to do if you're trying to, be a portfolio, grow a portfolio.
Finding property management, it's a whole game because they're the ones running the property, not you, right? I mean, you and I talked about that we want to be asset managers, not property managers. So, I mean, somebody else does it. So if they're not doing it well, then our property's not doing well. Yeah, we're on our second property management company, and our first one wasn't bad. We just felt like there was better out there, and it, it can still be a struggle. I mean, you got to stay on it, but when you find a good one, it really makes you want to buy more in that area. Like once you do find a good operator, it's like let's feed them more because they do really well. What's maybe just one or two things, Gabe, that the property management company you're using now, what do they do that the other ones didn't do? What makes them good?
Well, for one, they have more support, more
Yeah.
infrastructure.
Okay.
They
They're a little bigger
have,
company.
yeah, they're a little bit bigger of a
Okay.
company. They're not too big. I still get to talk with the owner, whenever I
Okay.
want,
Yeah.
and really, interact with them. When I spoke with them individually, I liked them. They seemed like good people, and that, I know that's like totally not scientific, but for me,
Sure.
when I'm talking with people, I really need to feel that they're genuine people, and
Yeah.
they're trying to run a good business. They obviously have more processes in place, and this was apparent to me when I, started working with them. Is they had like documents for things, and they had like actually processes built out.
Nice. Yep.
And they had it, their wisdom is apparent when I'm speaking with them,
Yes. Yeah.
running self-storage facilities.
So it's
Oh,
awesome.
and that was the other thing. They had like,
Yeah.
I don't know how many facilities under management already. And
Mhm.
the previous companies they were really small, and they only had a couple of facilities under management. And so having, that was just like day one, I knew like, okay, you guys already have X amount of facilities that you're managing.
Yep.
And I think they own 10 facilities themselves. And
Nice.
so like, I know that they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's pretty important.
Nice, man. Well, so this is really cool. It's fun to get an update from you, Gabe, from where you were last time we talked. And you built up a great portfolio. You're doing it full time now. You were sharing me that your family's about to be growing next year. So I'd like to switch the conversation a little bit. What has real estate done for you and your family? What do you hope it does for you? Like, what has it meant for that side of your life?
Yeah, man. I told you we're expecting our first May
Yeah,
24th.
congrats,
I am
man.
super excited.
Oh, I bet.
And
So
so, I mean, there's a tons of things I'm excited about, but bringing it to kind of real estate is, for one, it's freedom. when I was working corporate, I had to drive to work, and that took an hour, well, 2 hours every day back and forth.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I worked an hour a day, and it was just, I didn't have as much time. Not that I don't work any less now. Well, I definitely work less, but I can create my own schedule,
There
and
it
that
Yeah.
is
Yep.
the thing that really matters to me, is being able to define my own time, and especially when it comes to family. If there is something that I want to do during the day, I can do it. I don't have to like worry about it. I can go to
Yeah.
all the doctor's appointments. I can, whatever needs to happen, I can get it done. But there's also the obvious financial aspect of this. When we first talked, I think I did own the 2 mobile home parks, which they're doing great, but you can't live off of it.
Right.
And now, with the 6 self-storage facilities, I mean, if I wanted to, I could stop and just grow, be a dad, grow my family. I don't want to. That I do want to continue, building my business, but
Yeah.
the financial stress, not having financial stress
Oh,
is,
man.
I feel like it's nice not only for me, but it's nice for my family, because
For sure.
any stress that I have, everybody in my immediate environment is, they're gonna
Yeah.
feel it, and so.
Yeah.
And also, just kind of like in the back of my mind, obviously this is way too early. My it's a daughter, by the way. She's a girl. She's
Yeah.
she's not even born yet, but it would be cool. I've been like ruminating in my mind on
Yeah.
her being excited about self-storage and like doing the business with me. Who knows if she will? It's self-storage.
Hey,
It's not
just
super exciting, but
force feed her, and she'll be forced into it. Yep. Well, that's awesome. I'm sure your wife is so happy with your flexibility. With the flexibility that your family has, with the time that you're going to be able to have, and just how you guys can maneuver that. It's very tough, and just that little bit of freedom. I mean, that's why we talk about syndication and bring on passive investors, and not that everybody goes active, but even if you just have a little bit of extra income, if it can just give you a little bit more freedom. When you have kids, that's so powerful. I mean, if somebody can just go part-time, it's amazing, or just to not take the promotion that makes you travel even more. I mean, anything that just allows you to have a little bit more freedom, time freedom, is so helpful for a family. But you need money too. So I'm not, just out there telling everybody just make less money or whatever. No, try to get your money to work for you so you can make the same amount, but you don't have to work, as much or more, whatever. And yeah, I mean, you guys have that going on in spades there, Gabe. So it's so great. I think you're really going to be blessed by that.
we're super
I would
excited.
say, the only downfall is just, you saying that, you don't have to work and you can go to the appointments. I mean, your wife's going to use that against you. She's really going to expect a lot, man. So,
That's all right.
it's a good problem to have,
shoulder
right? It's a great problem to have. You guys will work through that. I'm sure you both know each other, and she knows you want to work. She knows you need to work. You guys have goals there, so it'll be awesome, man.
Yeah.
As we wrap this up, Gabe, I always like to ask, what does it take? What's a key ingredient to being a successful real estate investor? We've talked about the all that you guys do, the consistency that you have around the mailers and going for off market deals. What do you think maybe is that key ingredient? If someone wants to have success like you have, what do they have to have first?
I mean, I think in any business, it's just commitment and persistence is really the only thing you need. I mean, obviously you need a lot more, but if you just want to have, if you want to look at something and guarantee success, the attributes that you really need to be mindful of are know that you have to be committed to what you're doing.
Yes.
And then you have to be persistent.
Yes. It's so difficult. It's so difficult to be persistent, but that's why the people that do it succeed. It's just so powerful. It's that compounding effect. It's a compounding, doubling a penny every day, right? Like doubling your money every day. It feels like nothing, 20, 25 days in, you still feel like I have no money. And then it's $5 million on day 30. I mean, it just all of a sudden, but it takes a long time. You got to be.
And that's especially true. I feel like we were talking about off-market marketing. It's just like that in marketing. It's like you feel like you're getting nowhere, and you feel like you're just dumping money just down the drain until you find a deal that crushes it, and it makes it all worth it. You can spend $50,000 in marketing, not get a single penny, and then get a deal that has $1 million in equity, and it makes it all worth it. And so,
for sure, oh my goodness, for sure, yeah, that's awesome, Gabe. Wait, let me flip that question on its head real quick. What do you think is a key ingredient to, while having success in real estate, maintaining your priorities, making sure you're prioritizing your relationship with your wife, and you haven't experienced this yet, but what do you think is going to be to make sure you prioritize your daughter and time with the family? Because you want to have success in that area too, right? So maybe what's a key ingredient to make sure you're doing that?
I mean, for me, I think it just comes down to values, and you're going to put your time wherever your values are. So I value my family and more than I value, a deal in real estate.
Well, good stuff, man. Hey, a book. What about a good book recommendation? Can be real estate, can be business, mindset. What's something you've read recently that you would say our listeners should read?
I always like to recommend Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, one of my favorite books, if not my favorite book. It's killer if you ever just want to pick up a book and get some good wisdom. I know you're Christian. It's kind of like Proverbs in the Bible. It's just just little nuggets of awesomeness that you can pick up anytime.
Well, cool. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Gabe. Not something we've focused a lot on this show because I don't know. There's not a whole lot of people out there doing it like you talked about, and the ones that are doing it maybe not consistent, persistent enough with the finding the off-market deals. But man, so powerful. You just like you said. I mean, you just find one, and it's all worth it. So yeah, thanks for going through that. It was really helpful to just kind of get some numbers behind it, some tactical things we can do behind it because it can be so powerful. So it's been a lot of fun. Hey, before I let you go though, I always like to ask, how might my listeners and I be praying for you in the coming weeks?
I mean, the baby's coming, so just pray for good health for the baby.
Yep, and for you and your wife. Hey, get your relationship strong. Get yourselves ready. Have a lot of good date nights. Get ready.
Our house has 2 stories, and so the top story is where most of the rooms are. But we have one room downstairs that we like to put our bed down there, and we don't want to put the baby's room upstairs. And so we're taking our walk-in closet and changing that into a baby's room. So we're punching some holes in the walls to make some windows. We're putting in ventilation, a whole bunch of stuff. So
cool.
About that. So a lot of good things coming our way.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. We'd be happy to pray for that for you and your wife. And it's going to blow you away. It is hard. It's hard, especially early on, but man, it's obviously.
How many kids do you have again?
Just 2. We have 2. They're 9 and 7 now. So man,
nice.
Like everybody says, it goes by so fast, but every year is fun. Every age is so much fun. It does get easier. But every age is fun. I mean, I look at pictures when they're young and miss those stages too. So you guys are gonna be blown away. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Be happy to pray for you and your wife on that. Well, cool, Gabe. This has been a lot of fun, man. Learned so much. I'm sure my listeners will as well. We thank you for joining us today, man.
Yeah, likewise, Lee. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you for joining us for another great episode. I hope you'll take action on what you've learned today. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving Lee a 5-star rating and review. And check him out on threefoldrei.com. Until next time, 1 Timothy 6:17.